one there. He's got one there. So they've got these two available. She's got the one in her hand.
Yeah, she's
Those two
industrial.
available.
Oh, yeah. She works for
She's been doing it.
You don't have to turn it on.
It's on. So I should be like Joe Biden say something. Makes front pages.
You're asking way too much.
I just want to be in the
Yes. Scott, are you starting and then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have the list of speakers that are signed up?
Not me. Jeff?
Get the list of speakers. So, I think, are you going to let people know who's next up? Yeah. Do that. There's a microphone here.
I think when we start to take questions, I'll sort of give them the order, and then people can line up.
Yeah. Get started? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If I can have your attention, I think it's time for us to get started. My name is Scott Nielsen, and I'm the chairman of the Las Vegas Victims Committee. I'd like to welcome all of you this morning, all of those who are here in person and also those who are participating remotely. Before we start today's meeting, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence and prayer to remember all those who were killed, injured, or otherwise impacted by the terrible events of 1 October. Thank you. I'm going to take just a few moments to discuss the Las Vegas Victims Fund and the committee that's overseeing that fund, and then turn the time over to Mike Fernandez and Jeff Dion from the National Center for Victims of Crime. And they will then be the administrators and will conduct the meeting. The Las Vegas Victims Fund is a Nevada nonprofit corporation that was established to oversee the consolidation and distribution of the funds that were contributed as a result of the generosity of thousands of people and donors from around the world in response to the terrible events of October 1. As a result of a ruling from the Internal Revenue Service, we are now a 501c3 tax-exempt entity, and it's not often that we have the opportunity to thank the Internal Revenue Service, but I would like to thank the staff of the IRS because they expeditiously processed our application and got that done in record time. The Las Vegas Victims Fund then is overseen by a committee consisting of 17 members from the Las Vegas community. The committee includes representatives from victims advocacy groups, Clark County, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Catholic Charities, local charitable organizations and foundations, the UFC, Zappos, and other large contributors to the fund, the gaming and resort industry, and the legal and medical professions. Every person serving on this committee is doing so without compensation of any kind, as are Jeff and Mai. Everyone is providing their services free of charge. So I'd like to ask the Las Vegas Victims Fund Committee to please stand, and I'd like to thank them for their service. Thank you. The purpose of the committee, our mission, is to consolidate all the funds that have been contributed to different fundraising efforts, and to then to distribute those funds in a transparent, equitable, and expeditious manner to the families of the decedents and the survivors of 1 October. 100% of the funds collected by the Las Vegas Victims Fund will be distributed to those families and survivors. While we know a financial gift cannot begin to lessen the traumatic impact of this tragedy, we hope these gifts are recognized as a symbol of the love and support shown by thousands of donors, and that they help the survivors and their families in some way. The distribution of these funds is not intended to be to compensate claimants for medical bills or lost wages or any other economic loss. These funds to be distributed are simply a gift that can be used by the recipients in any manner they choose. To start to accomplish this mission of distributing these funds in an equitable fashion, the committee adopted the draft protocol that's been made available to the public. The draft protocol is a general outline of who's eligible to receive funds, how to make a claim for those funds, how the funds will be distributed, and an estimated timeline for that process. It's important to emphasize that the protocol is only a draft. This meeting, the meeting tonight, and the comments period online and by mail, those will all stay open until December 8th. And this committee will receive those comments and consider those before adopting a final protocol. We intend to do that. As I say, the comment period remains open until December 8th. The committee will then meet and consider those and make final decisions, and we hope to have those out, and we will have those out by December 15th. So we were assisted in drafting the protocol, this initial draft. We were assisted by Ken Feinberg and his staff, and also by Mai Fernandez and Jeff Dion from the National Center for Victims of Crime. And they will continue to work with us as we move through this process. Mr. Fernandez, or Ms. Fernandez and Mr. Dion will also serve as the fund administrators and will oversee the processing of the applications for funds. Mr. Feinberg, Ms. Fernandez, and Mr. Dion are nationally recognized for their experience in dealing with the distribution of funds in multi-claimant situations. And so we'd like to thank you for your help and your guidance. Now, before turning the time over to Mai and Jeff to conduct the rest of the meeting, I wanted to make it very clear that we will answer your questions concerning the protocol in the best way we can, but this is not a situation where we're going to debate those comments or even comment on your comments. This is an opportunity for us to simply listen. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear what you think of the protocol, and we want to hear your stories. So we're asking you to participate, and we thank you for being here. One last thing I would say is that more for people watching and so forth, if there's anyone still considering making a contribution to the Las Vegas Victims Fund, please do so. We have the number of people impacted by this incident are orders of magnitude greater than any others we've ever seen in this country. And so we need all of the funds that we can possibly raise to help these people. So thank you very much for your participation. I'll now turn the time over to Mai and to Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott. As Scott said, I'm Mai Fernandez. I'm the Executive Director of the National Center for Victims of Crime, and we're located in Washington, D.C., and we have had the unfortunate honor of helping administer several funds like this in Aurora, Colorado, in Chattanooga, last year in Orlando. Before I say anything else, I'm looking around this room, and I just want to say I am so very sorry for what you have all been through. And I also want to recognize how brave you all have been to be here. I'm looking at the victims, the survivors, the first responders, the sheriff, everybody who has worked so hard after what's gone on. Again, I can't say how sorry I am that this has been a national tragedy, but for you all, it's been a personal one. And I just wish you all the strength in moving forward. I just want to quickly introduce Jeff Dion, my colleague who will be the day-to-day administrator of this fund. You can wave your hand, Jeff. And Steve Rickman, who's our board treasurer, who lives here in Vegas. And my first phone call that day on October 1st was to Steve to say, "Are you alive?" And he has a personal commitment to helping all of you. We're here to provide information on the fund, but most important, we're here to listen. to what are your cares, your concerns, your needs. That's what this forum is about. It's really a listening session for us as the administrators, but also for the board to understand what the needs of this community. And those, I know many of you who are coming in live on a live feed through this, what your needs are when you're living in California or in Toronto or wherever you live now, but this tragedy happened here in Vegas. We're also here to direct you to services. If there's things that you need or services that you're not receiving in your locations or that you're seeing pop up in your family, tragedies like these can bring up lots of things, not just injuries, but also other kinds of things. We're here to direct you to the services that can help. I'm going to give my comments briefly also in Spanish. I'm also here and will be here throughout the town hall. I speak Spanish, and I'm happy to translate for anybody who needs it. I'm also here to say that we want to respect people's time, so we have a soft end to this listening session at about noon. We're asking people to try to limit whatever comments they're going to make to about 3 minutes. So if you see my hand go up, it just means that you're at about the 3-minute level. We're not going to try to cut you off, but we do want the opportunity for everybody to speak. And so if you bear with me for 1 second, I'm going to try to give you my same comments in Spanish. Again, mi nombre es María Cristina Fernández y soy la ejecutiva del Centro Nacional para las Víctimas de Crimen. Y otra vez quiero decir que lo siento de todo que ustedes han pasado. Han pasado mucho, la nación pasó mucho, pero ustedes han pasado más. Estamos aquí para presentarle información sobre los fondos que existen para las víctimas del Festival Harvest, pero estamos aquí para escuchar lo que ustedes necesitan y lo que tienen que tener para que sus vidas sean un poco mejor. Y también estamos aquí para saber en dónde nosotros lo podemos darle un poco de dirección para recibir servicios. Después de algo así, muchas cosas pasan en las familias, a las personas individualmente, y hay servicios para todos ustedes. Y estamos aquí para directarlos todos a esos servicios. Vamos a tratar de pagar esta sesión a eso de las 12 y cada persona tiene más o menos 3 minutos para hablar. Bueno, otra vez muchas gracias y otra vez lo siento mucho. I'm going to now pass the microphone to Jeff Dion, who is going to be the person who's going to do the day-to-day administration. Voy a pasar el micrófono a Jeff Dion, que va a ser la persona que va a administrar los fondos cada día.
Thank you, Mai, and good morning, everyone. I'm sorry that we all have to be here, but I want you to know that I once sat where many of you are. I'm here because my sister was murdered. She was the victim of a serial killer. When she was 23, I was just 14 years old. And that's part of the whole reason why I became a lawyer and why I became a victim advocate. And over the last 20 years, we've worked with victims of homicide and victims of trauma and mass violence. And like so many people who have been through that, they often become advocates because they say, I want to make this path of recovery a little easier for the people that come after us. And that's why I'm here. And so that we can share from the benefit of our experience and maybe make your path to recovery a little easier than it's been for people in the past. That's the whole reason the National Center created the National Compassion Fund. Victims of the Aurora Theater shooting came to us and said, we don't like how our charitable fund is being administered. and we want you to set up a different fund for us. And I thought, well, rather than just set up a fund for you, what if we put an infrastructure in place so when one of these events occur, we can flip a switch, we can start accepting money from the general public, and we can guarantee that 100% of what's collected goes to the victims of that crime. And that's what we did and why we set this up. Because in the past, some governor or mayor would appoint some local agency to be the recipient of those funds, and that well-meaning agency didn't have any plan in place ahead of time. They oftentimes didn't have any experience or understanding of victims' rights or victims' needs or victim services, and there would be a lack of transparency, and not all of the money would go to the victims. And so in response to that, that's why we set up this process. If you have not already signed up online at nationalcompassionfund.org, we have a victim contact form. Over 2,200 people have already given us their information. If you want to know what's going on with this fund, if you want to make sure you're notified about things that are happening in this process and the things you need to know to be able to collect benefits, please make sure that you're signed up on that so we can proactively get information to you. So let's start with how much money is there. Right now, there's about $16 million in the various accounts. There's money in the GoFundMe account that was set up by Sheriff Lombardo and Chairman Sisolak immediately following the event. And the money from there, money that's been donated to directly to the National Compassion Fund, money that's gone to the Las Vegas Victims Fund, all of that is going to be consolidated and pooled together so that there will be one place for victims to go to access that money to make it as easy as possible for you. That money came from people all over the world, from businesses, from individuals, in donations from $500,000 to $10. And it's really heartwarming to know that people all over the world care about you enough to reach into their pocket because they want to help. And sometimes knowing that is worth even more than whatever the money can provide. So who is eligible to receive these benefits? Anyone who was impacted by the events of October 1st. If you were there you bought a ticket to the concert and you were there, you're covered. If you were a vendor working there, if you were there on your job, if you were a first responder, you're covered. Even if you were outside the concert area, because we know the shooter impacted such a wide area from where he was, that it's not limited to people who were just inside the fence line of the concert grounds. It does not matter if you are a citizen of the United States or what your immigration status is. Everyone who is impacted, doesn't affect your eligibility at all. The draft protocols are set up to provide, as of right now, benefits to the families of those who were killed, to people who were injured and hospitalized. People often ask, how does accepting benefits or money from other sources impact this? From our perspective, we don't care where else you got money. If you had insurance that covered some of your losses, great. If you didn't, it's not going to matter. If you file a lawsuit and get money, that's fine. That's completely separate from this. If you get money from crime victim compensation from the state of Nevada or the state of California, that's not going to impact what we give you at all. Crime victim compensation is a state program that's designed to reimburse victims for their out-of-pocket expenses related to medical expenses, mental health counseling, funeral expenses, lost wages and support. Crime victim compensation acts as a payer of last resort. It's sort of like a social safety net. They're only going to reimburse victims for things that aren't covered by anyone else. So if you had health insurance, crime victim compensation won't reimburse you for your medical bills, but they would reimburse you for your copay, anything that you had to pay out of pocket. Crime victim compensation does not cover non-economic losses, psychological trauma, emotional harm. And so when we set up the Compassion Fund, we saw that as a need. And so we don't base our awards on any of your financial losses. And because of that, there's no overlap with crime victim compensation. So we know, so whatever you get from crime victim compensation isn't going to impact your eligibility to get money from us. And we've also spoken with the crime victim compensation programs in Nevada and California so that they know we're not covering the same losses they are. So if you get money from us, you're not going to have to give any money back to crime victim compensation. Now, I do know that some people got money from crime victim compensation, for example, for funeral benefits. And then Zappos provided money to people for funeral benefits. And then people get a notice, they think, I've got to pay this money back. Now this is confusing and it's a hassle. If you've gotten double benefits, my recommendation is call and talk with the Crime Victim Compensation Program. They're really here to help. If the benefits they gave you can't be attributed to funeral expenses because those were covered someplace else, they're going to look at the rest of your losses and say, is there something else that we can use this money to cover for you? They're not trying to get money back from you. But so talk with the folks at Crime Victim Compensation. They're good folks who are here to help. What is the process for applying for benefits? Oftentimes people ask, do I need a lawyer to do this? No, you don't need a lawyer. If you want to use a lawyer, you're welcome to, but you absolutely do not need a lawyer. This isn't very complicated. And so if you do use a lawyer, don't let the lawyer try and tell you that they're going to take a percentage of whatever you get from the fund, because there are a lot of good lawyers out there, and many of you may have a lawyer who is representing you in a civil lawsuit. You might have a lawyer who's representing you in a probate matter, and they say, I'll handle this paperwork for you. That's fine. When we ask you in your application, are you represented by counsel? We mean, are you represented by counsel in this application process? Because we want to know, if we have a question, do we need to talk to the lawyer? Do we need to talk to you? So if you're doing the application on your own, but you have a lawyer for a lawsuit, or you had a divorce lawyer, doesn't matter. We're just interested in, do you have a lawyer that's doing this application for you? The applications are going to be electronic. And so you're going to do an online application for benefits. If you don't have a computer or you don't have access to the internet, contact us and we're going to make arrangements to help you out and make sure that you can get your application in. But we want to do this electronically so that there's going to be a lot of applications for us to manage, and we want to be able to do it as efficiently and as quickly as possible to get you as much help as we can as quickly as possible. Everyone that applies for benefits is going to have to go through 2 validation steps. The first is everyone who applies needs to be validated by the FBI that they were a victim of this event. We have an obligation to all the people around the world that donated money to make sure that the people who are getting money from this fund were victims of October 1st. We also have an obligation to make sure that, an obligation to everyone who is impacted by October 1st, that only you are getting money from this fund. because there's a limited amount of money, and so we want to make sure that everyone is covered to the extent we can. So we will contact the FBI and say, we got an application from John Smith. Can you verify that he was a victim of the Pulse shooting? And the FBI is going to look on their victim list, and then they're going to say, yes, this person was a victim of the October 1st shooting, or we don't have that information. If the FBI doesn't have you on their victim list, they're going to send an FBI agent out to talk to you because they want to make sure that they have a full accounting from everyone who was there. There were a lot of people there. If they missed someone, then they want to go back and talk to you, and then as we've seen in past events, then they'll probably come back and say, yes, we can validate this person. That's why when people went to the Family Assistance Center afterwards to reclaim personal property, they put you through a process and they asked you, have you spoken with law enforcement? Who in law enforcement did you speak with? If someone came to reclaim property and they had not yet spoken with law enforcement, they had FBI agents there. So they're making a good faith effort to try and collect information from everybody so that the FBI can validate people as being victims of this event. Additionally, we'll run people through a database that's set up by the U.S. Department of Treasury through the Office of Foreign Asset Control. It's called the ISDN database. And it's just, there's a list of people that we can't legally give money to. And those are basically people who have been identified as like terrorists or drug dealers. And I've never had someone come up on that list, but we just have an obligation to make sure that we're complying with the law. And so we'll run people through both of those things, and that's something that every applicant will go through. For injury claims, the only additional step for an injury claim is as part of your application, you will sign an authorization for your medical provider to release information to us. All we're going to contact your medical provider about is, can you validate that this person was hospitalized as a result of injuries incurred in this event? Doesn't matter if you were shot, if you were trampled by the crowd, if you had suffered an injury that required hospitalization that as a result of this event, that's all we're checking, and the number of nights in which you were hospitalized. So we don't need your medical records. Don't send us your medical records, but just sign that authorization and tell us who your medical provider was, and we'll reach out to them and do that validation. And if there's any problem, we'll get back in touch with you if there's a discrepancy. For example, in Orlando, some people said, I was hospitalized for 12 nights. And then we did the initial check with the hospital, and they said, no, we have this person was hospitalized for 7 nights. And then we went back and asked them. They said, well, I was hospitalized for 7 nights. They sent me home. I got an infection. I went back in the hospital for another 5 nights. And the hospital said, oh, we didn't realize that it was cumulative. So yes, so we're making sure they know that. So if there's a discrepancy between what you tell us and what the medical provider tells us, we're going to work it out and make sure we have the appropriate information. If someone was injured and they have suffered permanent brain damage or paralysis, that is the one diagnosis that we need information on from the medical provider. Because under these draft protocols, someone who suffers a physical injury that's that extensive, they will receive benefits at the same level as someone who was killed. And so you're still going to file an injury claim, but there's going to be a question about that, and just in those circumstances, will we need any type of diagnosis from your medical provider that tells us that this person has suffered permanent brain damage or paralysis? For death claims is where it gets more complicated. The first thing about death claims is we need to know that we're dealing with the right person who's representing the estate. If someone was killed and they had a will, and the person who is named as the executor of their estate is an appropriate person to submit the claim for benefits. They can apply for benefits. If they've got a will and you submit that, then we'll say this is the right person. If someone did not have a will, and many people don't, then if the person was married at the time of their death, their spouse can apply for benefits. If the person was not married at the time of their death, so in all of those other situations, whether they were divorced, whether they had never been married, then our recommendation is that someone be appointed by the probate court to serve as personal representative of that person's estate. That's just the court telling us this is the person who is the appropriate person to deal with regards to claims of that decedent's estate. The probate court that would have jurisdiction over that is the probate court where the decedent lived. And we have people from who were killed that were from 12 different states and 2 provinces in Canada. And so we're going to look to the probate courts in those states to tell us who is the appropriate person to do that. Sometimes, every state's different, and sometimes it might take up to 30 days or more to be appointed as personal representative. So if no one has done that yet, please start that process now. Otherwise, it will delay your benefits, and we want to make sure that we're dealing with the appropriate person. Sometimes there might be multiple people who think that they should be the personal representative of the estate, and we might get multiple applications for benefits in a death case. We'll accept multiple applications, but we're really going to be looking towards who is the probate court say that the personal representative is. When someone dies and they don't have a will, every state has a law in place that says when someone dies without a will, this is who gets what. Now, it varies from state to state, but generally they have the same basic premise, which is usually along the lines of if someone was married at the time of their death, their spouse gets everything. If someone was married at the time of their death and they had children, and all of their children were a product of that marriage to the person to whom they were married at the time of their death, the spouse gets everything. If someone had children and even one child was not the child of the surviving spouse, whether they came from a previous marriage or something, then what happens generally, the spouse gets half and all of the surviving children share half in equal shares. If someone was never married or didn't have any children, then usually it goes to their parents. If their parents predeceased them, then it might go to siblings. When you submit a claim for benefits in a death case, you can set up a proposed personal distribution plan of who is going to get the money from this fund. And you can do whatever you want as long as whoever is legally required to receive something, as long as all of those people agree. So if everything's going to go to someone's spouse and that's the only person, that's fine. If there's the money is supposed to would legally go to someone's parents and they decide, well, we want to include their cousin who was really like a sibling to them, they were really close, or we want to make sure we give money to this that they really believed in, all of that's fine. You can do whatever you want as long as everyone agrees. As long as all the people who are legally required to agree. We want everyone to agree. If you don't agree, if there are people and there's a dispute, then we won't decide that. We're going to go ahead and deposit the money with the probate court where the estate is, and then you folks can fight it out. So we want to encourage everyone to come together and reach consensus about what you want to have happen. If there, yes. Right. If there are minor children who are going to receive benefits from the fund, please check with your local court, because every state has different rules about to give money to a minor over a certain amount. The court might need to appoint a guardian who's going to oversee that money until that child turns 18. And so we'll work with you and help you figure that out, but just know those are some of the issues that you need to address. When you submit your application, you will also submit at that time how you want the payment transmitted, whether you're going to get a check or whether it's going to be done by electronic transfer. And so when you submit that application, we should have all of the information we need to do that. Once, if there is a problem, we're going to go ahead and we're going to reach out to you. Sometimes we don't realize there's a problem until we're going to pay people and there's something that's not right about the routing number, but we'll work that out with you. So that's the general overview of how we see this process working. And now we're happy to take questions and hear from folks. There are people who signed up ahead of time, and I've got the initial list. And so first would be Lillian Aguirre, followed by Michelle Leonard and Kimberly King, Laura Puglia, Karen Iantuano, James Lee, and Sue Ann Cornwell. So if we called your name, if you folks could line up here at the microphones, we're happy to hear from you or answer your questions. You don't have to get up. We'll go ahead. We don't want to. If it's not easy for you to do that, what's your name? Michelle. I'm gonna bring one of those over to you when it's your turn. Okay. Great. Lillian.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So I have my notes on my phone, if that's okay. My name is Lillian Aguirre. I want to start by thanking the committee for allowing others and myself the opportunity to have our voices and stories heard. My hope is that you take into consideration Nevada residents that worked the event and those who were physically injured and continue to receive treatment for physical injuries. I've lived in Las Vegas for 12 years. Las Vegas is an internationally renowned resort city known primarily for its gambling, shopping, fine dining, entertainment, and nightlife. This city serves as the leading financial, commercial, and cultural center for Nevada. I moved here to further my education. Living in a city that never sleeps, within the years I have accomplished obtaining a bachelor's degree from UNLV in social work. In the studious years, I have also received my master's in social work and currently enrolled in a doctorate program for psychology with specialization in criminology and justice studies. Why is this important? I wouldn't have accomplished these goals without having employment that allows flexible hours, sufficient pay for my family's needs, and have the opportunity to work full-time jobs, attend school, and have part-time gigs. I have worked in casinos, restaurants, and events such as the Route 91. I and many other employees are dedicated to making tourist experience the best to have patrons return to Las Vegas while accomplishing personal and educational goals. Many others, myself included, are struggling with physical injuries, going back to work, looking for employment, and adjusting to this trauma. I propose that Nevada residents who work the event should also be included in this distribution. I also propose that the protocol should include those victims who were physically injured as an outpatient basis and continue to struggle with physical injury and therapy. Those who reside in Las Vegas have dedicated their time and work to be part of what makes Vegas strong. August 12, 2016, the protocol for the shooting that happened in the Pulse nightclub included eligible claimants who were treated on an emergency outpatient basis by a physician and released without an overnight hospital stay. December 14, 2012, the Sandy Hook Elementary School protocol included those who were injured. April 16, 2007, the Virginia Tech shooting protocol included varying amounts to those injured and within the 4 classrooms where the shooting took place. What happened the night of October 1st changed many lives and impacted employees who worked these events. Nevada would not be successful without dedicated employees. In closing, I encourage you to take into consideration Nevada residents that work the event and those who are physically injured and continue to receive treatment for physical injuries. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Michelle Leonard, and I don't have a beautiful speech like she just had, so I'm just flying off the seat of my pants. I'm a resident of Peoria, Arizona, and I had a store there at the event. This is my livelihood, and this is what I do. I have blood clots in my leg. I was not admitted to the hospital because when I ran, I fell over a concrete barrier and was trampled on. I have soft tissue damage to my leg. I was not admitted, but I am ongoing seeing medical treatment. I am not able to be on my feet. My legs swell up to the point that my skin cracks. I have a child that I have to take care of, and I have a husband. My life has changed. I may not have had a bullet put in my body, but I feel like a bullet has been put in my head and in my soul and my heart, and my life is forever changed. I am currently on Xanax. They have me on Prozac, and I'm having a very hard time functioning. I am here to represent the vendors that were there, and that you don't forget us. We have been victimized over again by what has happened. Our booths have been gone through. Our cash has been removed. Our inventory has been destroyed and has been stolen. And the FBI tells us that they have turned the site over to MGM. And we're not getting clear answers as to what is what. They're telling me that I have 4 to 6 months to be off my feet. I have to go see a orthopedic surgeon to see if I have permanent damage in my leg, because at this point it's not getting better, it's staying the same. So please consider that if us victims that were not put in the hospital or did not stay, we have mental issues and we have physical issues that we are still dealing with. And it is very important that you put us in and think of us too. And I don't want to take away from those that have lost their lives and those that have permanent damage of paralysis. I just feel like we just not need to be forgotten. And that's all I have to say.
morning, everyone. My name is Kimberly King. My husband and I attended the Route 91 festival that Sunday night. We were enjoying Jason Aldean and our first date night in a long time, when our lives were completely changed. I didn't know what was going on when everything started. All I could think about was the fear of never seeing my children again. While we were laying on the floor, and my husband's body over me, protecting me from the sounding bullets, he was shot in the back and chest. When he realized he was shot, all he can think about was to get me to safety. We ran as fast as we could out of the venue, avoiding getting shot by any more bullets. I screamed for help as much as I could because my husband was bleeding out of his chest. No one could help me. We ran and we ran and we ran and to try to find an ambulance and couldn't find one. Finally, after running to the Tropicana, we had help getting him to a Lyft driver to take him to Sunrise Hospital. We were one of the first patients to arrive. He was immediately taken in the back to wait for surgery. The way he explains it was from 10 people to 300 people arriving. There was not enough surgery rooms to operate on him. So he was released on Tuesday with shrapnel still left in his body. He hasn't been able to return to work since that tragic day. My question is, are you saying that is he not a victim because he wasn't admitted for more than 24 hours? Are you saying that our family doesn't deserve to be helped? Our family has been rocked because of this. We have 4 children that need of us to be well and healthy, both physical and mentally. And I don't feel that it's right to determine who deserves more or less money. We all lost something that night, and we're trying every day to recover it. Thank you.
October 1st is not an event anyone would have chosen to go through or witness. I am here speaking on my own account and on behalf of those who are unable to attend due to work and/or psychological trauma. Both are cases in point. What does Vegas Strong really mean if its citizens are hurting, struggling, or are being disregarded? In my own recent difficulties, I have often found myself pondering whether or not it is the campaign of an illusion, playing upon the heartstrings of an emotionally charged community and a bystanding nation. That is how the media works, after all. With great respect to the deceased and their families, I will continue. The 2 qualifying determinants of the draft protocol for the National Compassion Fund include only physical injury and death, clearly stating that if you escaped and are surviving with only psychological trauma, you are being disregarded. Not only is it undermining psychological trauma, in simple terms, it's also heavily suggesting that an individual was and should have been ready and equipped to return to work without any break or repercussion in between the event and returning back to everyday life. You want to remove the emotions when it's the foundation of what these actual fundraisers are built upon. You want to remove the element of mental instability when it's what caused the shooter to commit the act that he did. I worked a Route 91 event as a bartender, like many others. It is common knowledge that to work most anywhere as a bartender in the city, one is required to carry work identification cards. If that rule is not followed, individuals and businesses are subject to severe fines and other possible penalties for not adhering to protocol. When I realized gunfire was the sound I was hearing, I ran for my life with only my cell phone and my back pocket. For weeks after the shooting, I was without all of my personal belongings: my car, ID, work cards, keys, credit and debit cards. I had absolutely no access to cash. I was completely dependent on other people, like a child. The concert venue had been deemed an official crime scene and everything was under possession of the FBI. I was rendered unable to work, not just in an actual sense, but also psychologically. Some people lost their jobs entirely. Not every employer practices empathy. As compassionate as my employer has been, it cannot make for the reality that I missed multiple weeks of paid labor. Even without dwelling, I've come up against unforeseen repercussions that I could not have predicted any more than the incident itself. I'm not here to say who should be administered what and how, because the reality is that pain is incomparable as human beings. I'm here to suggest that everyone be included, that there should be a great interest on upholding a true sense of community and support in the genuine way of healing. Thank you.
I don't have a big speech or anything. My daughter is one of the victims, also her boyfriend, Brent Stewart, who was murdered in front of her. She has severe injuries, and from what I'm gathering now is because she was brought to the hospital of my choice so they would get to her fast and not go through the chaos of what was going on with the other hospitals. Her knee was dislocated. She's been living on a couch, reclined for the last 3 months. She has 7 months total. They're hoping to get her to learn how to walk again. She has screws in her legs. They've had to use her hamstring. And from what I'm understanding, to hear your daughter's cries in the middle of the night, call you to tell you goodbye and I love you, and for then a victim's fund to turn around and say that all our friends and everyone who dedicated everything to these children and all these people hurt and who were murdered, that she's less of a person because she didn't spend the night in the hospital but had to leave to go have major surgery. So therefore she's not considered in this campaign or this victim's fund, which I don't think is fair to anybody. Whether you spent a night, a second, or whatever in the hospital, and you have therapy, and you have no means for help. She is I am her only means of support. Her father was killed less than 2 years ago from a hit-and-run drunk driver, never found. So therefore, she only has me. I am about probably to lose my job because I have no one to take care of her but me. So with that saying, I hope that you will take in consideration all the people who are going, like they said, through therapy, who've had injuries, and who have no means of help for themselves. I've been to the victims of crime and was told, sent a letter, no matter what they help her with, it is to be paid back. I don't think that is something that should be done, and I don't believe that is fair. If that is the case, I will do every means to borrow or get loans to take care of my child. And I just wanted to thank you guys for all of this and having this meeting. Thank you.
Next up, James Lee.
Yes, sir. Hi, how are you? I'll make this very quick. Is this a question session where we can ask a couple?
Certainly ask a question, make a comment, whatever you like.
Great. My first name is James. My last name's Lee. My colleague Brian Nettles and I are lawyers, and we are representing many of these victims. And we're doing it free of charge for this fund. We agree with you. It's not right for the lawyers to charge for donations. My question is the fund going to compensate the victims based upon the severity of the injury?
Generally, yes. What we're providing benefits for, really, it's a gift, and it is based on the psychological trauma that people suffer, because that's something that isn't covered by victims' compensation. In terms of a physical injury, we know that all of those people suffered psychological trauma, and we are using as a very rough, we're using as a very rough estimate the number of nights that someone was hospitalized to gauge that the severity of that injury. So what we expect is that there will be tiers within the category of people being physically injured, there will be different tiered levels of benefits based on the severity of the injury, which is represented by the number of nights someone was hospitalized. Oftentimes, we can't predict what those tiers are or what they're going to encompass, because once we see the application, sometimes they sort of sort themselves into clear groups, and so that's something we don't know until we see the application.
That makes sense. Would it be helpful for our legal team to have our nurse that we have on staff to order all the relevant hospital records, organize it, summarize it, and give you all a chronology?
I think the most important thing, what would be really helpful, is just if we could have a brief statement describing their injuries and the number of nights that the cumulative number of nights they were hospitalized, and making sure that we have all of the correct information for when they execute the release authorization for information, that we have the right people to contact to just validate that.
The medical providers.
That's right.
Are you going to actually order the records?
No.
Okay, well, without ordering the records, I'm confused about how you're going to be able to judge the severity of the injuries. Is it just going to be based upon the summary that's provided?
Yeah, it's going to be based on the number of nights hospitalized. All we're asking the medical provider for is to tell us the cumulative number of nights that someone was hospitalized.
Understood. Okay. My next question, will the fund compensate the families of the death victims based upon age and wage earning capacity, or is it strictly an objective one-size-shoe-fits-all?
Yeah, no, it's just a gift. It does not, because it's not replacing anyone's future lost income or anything like that, all of the death claims will have the same level of benefit. In Orlando, there was someone who was killed whose sole survivor was his mother. There was a woman who was killed who had 11 children. But the death claims for all of the death cases were the same.
Understood. I think you covered this, but I want to be super clear about it. Is the fund going to submit any type of lien with regards to any related lawsuits from this matter?
Absolutely not.
Okay. My last question, sir. Establishing the probate matters in the estate in some states like California is going to take longer than 30 days. And it could be done by agreement, I'm hopeful, with many of the clients that I represent. But in the event that we can't, are you going to have a deadline set certain where you're just going to put that money into the probate court, assuming that it's even been opened at that time?
Well, here's the thing, that we know that could take a longer period of time. The good thing is, sort of the benefit, is that we know there's a fixed number of people who were killed. And so we know that whatever is going for death claims is going to be divided by 58. And so it's not a question of someone who was killed being validated that they were a victim. It's just a question of what are we going to do with that money. And so for the death claims, if there is a delay in identifying the personal representative, it's going to result in a delay in being paid benefits until that gets sorted out. But it won't cause a delay in us doing the calculation of what those benefits are, because we're going to distribute 100% of what's collected. And so that means that what each individual person gets is a factor of how much money is there and how many people were certified as claimants in those particular categories.
That makes sense.
Because we know who they are in the death cases, it might delay the payment, but it's not going to delay our calculation.
That makes sense. One of the things that I noticed in the protocol was that if the family members agreed and submitted an agreed upon form, then that would constitute enough for payment for the deceased. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So that means that you don't have to have the probate court order if the family does it by agreement to split it up however they see fit. Is that correct?
As long as yes, because the parties can agree as to if the person was not married at the time of their death, and there should be some question about who the personal representative is. If everybody who is a potential claimant agrees, that will be honored, and you can short circuit that process, yes.
By putting all the relevant family members that would be heirs under the state of that particular probate law, for example, by agreement. So
yes.
Okay.
And one other thing, so everybody understands, and which makes it a little more complicated in death cases, because the people that could be beneficiaries are going to be beneficiaries because they were married to the decedent or they were a child of the decedent. We need to be able to document and prove those relationships, which means we're going to need marriage certificates, or we're going to need birth certificates, just to be able to connect that these three people were the children of this person, and we're going to see that on their birth certificate. So as long as, so you'll be instructed to provide that documentation to be able to prove those relationships.
How are you guys giving notice to everybody who has a potential claim? Is it just through the FBI list, or how are you getting to everybody? Is my question.
So that's why we are encouraging. Well, we've got it up on the web. We're doing it through the media. We're doing it through the FBI. We're also doing it through the Resilience Center and through. We have already had 2,200 people contact us, and we're sending out information to all of those people too. So we are encouraging people, anybody who might be in any way interested or be a potential claimant, to please contact us so we can get you information.
My concern is my last comment. My concern would be that many of these folks that I have talked to are, they're not ready to do this. Okay, it's too hard for them, especially if they lost a family member. So it might be wise to have a reserve to hold back for some of the injured folks who have not had the ability to step forward yet. Just some suggestion.
That's a good suggestion. Like I said, in terms of the death cases, we know who all those people are, and we actively work to make sure that we reach out to someone. I can remember when we did this in Orlando, there was one family that we did not have any representative from that family on our contact list. We were getting close to the deadline. We worked with the FBI. The FBI said, yes, we've been in touch with that family, said, please encourage them to send this in. And I was never more relieved than when we got an application from that family, because if we know who people are, we want to make sure that no one is left out. So thank you very much.
Thank you for everything you guys are doing.
Sure, hold on just 1 second. I had one more person on here, and then if we have time, we can certainly open it up. Sue Ann.
Hi, I'm Sue Ann Cornwell. I've been a resident here since 1983. I recently retired from driving a school bus here in Clark County for 30 years. I'm here on behalf of one of the deceased, Denise Burditis. She passed away in the back of my truck on the way to the hospital, and so I'm here representing her and her family, and I'm also here representing people that weren't injured as far as being shot or ran over or anything. But a lot of us stayed, and we went back in, and we helped, and we saw horrible things, just like a war zone that, I don't think anybody here wanted to be a part of history, but we now are. I just hope that you guys understand that there's a lot of, I always say the letters wrong, but I'm going to try PTSD, I think it's called. A lot of people are suffering from that, and my sister was there with me, and she's within arm reach of me most of the time. She wakes up in the middle of the night and comes and finds me wherever I am whenever she's scared. She's getting ready to go home to Wisconsin, and she has a lot of stuff going on in her head. She's not going to have the support system when she gets back there. I just want you guys to know that we appreciate the time and effort you're putting it in, and there's people out there that need help, and they weren't at a hospital. They didn't go seek help. I've always been strong, and I'm going to figure this out on my own kind of thing. Having to help my sister helps me. Gunshots were waking me up in the middle of the night, so I loaded all my guns up and went and shot them at the range, because now my last memory is of me having fun and enjoying something that I enjoy. I'm sleeping about 3 hours a night. We all have a new normal, everybody that was there. So no matter how big or small our injuries are, or what we did or didn't do, we all have to learn how to live with that. And we all succeed in different ways, and we all heal in different ways. And I just want you guys to do the right thing. And it sounds like you're on the right track. Just being here has helped, knowing what you guys are planning and the way you guys are handling it. I think it's going to go in the right spot. But I just want you to know the protocol that you have out has to include those that have not seeked help. You know, if they fill out your paperwork and stuff, then obviously they need help, whether it be just to take their family and go and enjoy something that helps them be able to get out in public again and continue their life in the way that it needs to be continued to the best of their ability. And I would like to reach out to the young lady over here. I'm retired. If you need some help, we'll exchange numbers. I can come stay with your daughter while you go to the grocery store or do what you need to do. I'm here. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, if anybody else has questions or comments, just go ahead and line up at the microphone, and we'd be happy to hear from you.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Michaels. I want to thank you all for making this foundation and opening up this forum for all of us to speak. I was one of the bar staff. Thank you too. You did so well. I've written letters, emails. I've sent them out. It took me, the 3 pages I wrote took me 2 days to write because my PTSD, I guess is what it's called, is like terrible ADD. Like I was a perfect functioning person before this happened. Now I find eggs in the bathroom sink and I leave the pan on the stove. But we don't need all those details. What I'm here to say is I didn't go to the hospital. I took cover under a building. I laid on my stomach next to a security guard, and when more rounds went off, a bunch of people dove on top of us and crawled over us. And when it stopped, they said, run, run, evacuate to the east, run. I couldn't run. My foot hurt too bad. My knee hurt too bad. But I got out. And while getting out, I also tried to help people because I am trained in tactical medical and counterterrorism, but the emergency people said, no, just go. So I did get to my car, and I did have all of my things because I had gone to the bathroom. So I had my whole entire purse with me. I didn't go to the hospital. I don't have health insurance. I did go to the Red Cross. I filled out the victim of crimes paperwork. They said they would send us an approval letter. So I'm waiting because I'm in pain. The next morning I woke up, my back was really, really hurting. My legs go numb. My foot, I can't even stand on it. I did try to go out with friends the other night and I couldn't, I'm still limping to this day. But so the moral of the story is just because we didn't go to the hospital doesn't mean that we are not physically injured, and on top of that, the mental, I don't know when I'm going to be okay. I lost my job 2 days after the event. I called in the first day. I'm trying to find out if my friends and my coworkers are alive. Okay. The next day, I went and I started to cry, and I got fired by my boss, who said, you need thicker skin. I haven't been able to work. I'm too disorganized to apply for a job. I haven't got any medical. Oh, victim of crimes sent a letter not 8 days later. Actually, it's marked October 18th, but the post date on the envelope is November 1st. I saved it. And it says that I can get chiropractic care and mental therapy. Okay, I don't know if I have a fracture in my foot. I don't know what's wrong with my knee. I don't know what's wrong with my back. There was no, I couldn't go get an X-ray. Who decides that that's all I can get? I haven't even been examined to this day. So please take into consideration, and we work here, and this is our livelihood, and we weren't, not that nobody should have gone through this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, My name's Wendy Reed, and my friend Michelle and I were vendors at the event. And October 1st is a day I'll never forget and changed many people's lives. And a lot of people didn't go to the hospital at first because they were at capacity. They were pulling different shifts in to come in and help you. There was no room. So people didn't go right away. The event was like a car accident. I mean, you were sore when the night it happened, and then every day that progressed, it got, your physical and mental state got worse and worse. And I got the protocol draft emailed to me, and I agree that the deceased and the severely injured definitely should be first on the list. You know, I waited 3 weeks to go to the doctors, and I may not have bruises anymore, but I'm still hurting, you know, both physically and mentally. And unlike my friend Michelle, who may have to have surgery, you know, went to the doctor the next day, but didn't have an overnight stay. It's people like us that are kind of affected and just kind of getting forgotten about. And I too got a letter that said if you got any compensation or you have to pay it back. And I mean, I don't know. I guess we're at a loss for words. I mean, you get so many sessions with somebody, or you get so many physical therapy visits, and then after that, then what? You know, it's going to be out of pocket at some point. So, and like other were saying, you know, you're trying to concentrate on something and focus on something, and something will happen, and your focus is gone, and now you're looking in that direction where it happened, and saying, is it that sound going to happen again? Are they? No one's screaming, no one's running yet. Or, for instance, at PBR, I happened to walk in and physically see a cowboy step on a shaking machine, and his spur was hitting it and making a noise. I seen him step on it. I seen him get off, and the noise stopped. But your brain has to stop. You have to stop for a minute and be like, you're seeing it, but I can't describe it, you know. So physically, I'm not shot and I'm not injured like some people, but we still need a little help. So thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to, again, make clear, I know the letters that you get from crime victim compensation that say if you get any compensation, you need to pay this back can be really confusing. But just know that any money that you get from us is not going to be required, isn't going to cause you to pay anything back to crime victim compensation. I can't talk about other benefits that you receive, but I know that the money from us will not require you to pay back any money to crime victim compensation because we specially designed it that way so there wouldn't be an overlap. You had a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask real quick. So the way I'm understanding this is even though my daughter didn't spend the night in the hospital, they popped her knee back into place, but she was sent to have the major surgery that she had done, and therefore all the therapy that she is excluded from this fund, even though our families and friends and everybody who also donated, we didn't do, as I had seen a lot of people did, the GoFundMe for their family members or for themselves. We did not do that. We don't believe in handouts, and you know, we try to do on our own. So, but my take from all this is no matter who, from wherever the money came from, she's ineligible due to the fact that she didn't spend the night in the hospital.
She didn't even spend the night in the hospital when she had the surgery?
No, they did Desert Orthopedic. They did outpatient surgery on Desert Inn.
Okay.
Their place there. She's got screws, like I said. You know, her knee is completely done with, and she's going to take her quite a long time to learn how to walk again and to rebuild all muscle that was cut through, and her hamstring used to replace everything that was torn inside that knee, along with the screws in her kneecap and in her femur as well. So my understanding is you're telling, from what I'm hearing, she is not eligible for this fund because not taken away from anyone. like I said, who has passed or who was shot. So therefore, you're saying because she wasn't, that she's not eligible, which I don't believe is fair.
Right. Under the draft protocol, which is a draft, that is correct. And that's what everyone on the committee is here to hear feedback about that and suggested changes.
Yeah, I would appreciate that too, because I do know not only did she lose a loved one, but now she is in this predicament. And there are also other people that I know that had to jump 6-foot walls and broke their ankles, you know. And so that's why I'm saying I don't believe that's fair. I think whether you stayed the night in the hospital, there should be compensation for those who were injured and do have ongoing therapy and have to relearn all this. That's all.
Great, thank you.
Hopefully you'll take it into consideration.
Any other questions or comments? I encourage all of you, if you didn't have a chance to speak here, or anyone who's watching on the telecast, to please, if you look at the information in the protocols, which are available at the county website or at the Las Vegas Victims Fund website or at the National Compassion Fund website, the information is in there to send an email or a written letter to provide your feedback and your comments on the draft protocol. The committee is going to be accepting comments and input until December 8th, at which time they will go ahead and decide on the final protocol that will govern the distribution of these funds. And again, I would appeal to everyone, anywhere, that the more money we have, the more we're able to help these people. I think everyone's demonstrated the tremendous need that exists for everyone who is impacted by that, and we're going to give away every dime that we get, but my fear is that it still won't be enough, but we'll do all that we can. Scott, did you want to, yes.
Are you going to give consideration to the vendors and the folks that were working there, that we got victimized by the shooter and then we got re-victimized by the system, and the losses that us as vendors have? Is that going to be accountable and put into this as well?
So everyone who was a vendor is absolutely eligible for benefits, because nothing that we're paying is in compensation for economic losses. We won't consider the money that you've lost or the inventory you lost, because if you do get that, then it starts to impact, then we start having problems with it being the same thing that other things can cover, and that there would be, might require an offset. So that's why we are recognizing for the people who are deemed eligible, their non-economic damages and their psychological trauma. And I would certainly encourage you to pursue other avenues that are available for your financial loss, including there are legal options available too, and we can help refer you to people to do that as well. But under this, that isn't something that's covered under this particular fund.
Okay, but the mental that people are going through right now with the issues that we're having mentally, that is going to be taken into consideration for anybody that is having those problems in coping.
Yes, once you get through the threshold of eligibility, wherever that ends up, and once you make it through there, that is exactly what we're going to be looking at.
Okay.
I think I raised this question early on, and I don't know if it was done by email or such, but I did take a gunshot wound, and I did not spend any nights in the hospital. So it was more important to get home to my family. They couldn't do surgery for about 5 days. the swelling was too severe. The bullet lodged in my cheek, so we knew exactly where it was. I had a drainage system for about 5 more days, and then once the stitches came out, I still couldn't work. So I would really like to ask that the hospitalization does not hold as big of a weight as maybe you initially thought, because even though I didn't spend any time in the hospital, I still did take an injury.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I guess that brings this public meeting to a close, and I'd just like to thank you all again for being here, and I'd like to especially thank those that spoke today. It was very helpful for us, and we'll consider all of that input, and then we will make some decisions. But thank you all very much for being here, and thank you for speaking to us. Thank you.